Howdy my totally, as always, Tubular Gamers, we're back with, you guessed it, another video. Thanks for coming back to the channel. If you're new here, maybe subscribe because I got a fun list for you. Today we're going to be talking about the 10 best modern open world games. Now, open worlds and video games really seem to go together, especially these days. It feels like open worlds and video games are pretty commonplace. In fact, I have a hard time remembering when open worlds weren't commonplace in video games. And so yeah, today I thought I would talk about the 10 best modern open world games. Now, when I say modern, I mean released in the last 10 years. So you won't see Skyrim, you won't see GTA 5, you won't see Assassin's Creed 4, Burnout Paradise, the list goes on and on for a bunch of awesome 360 games, and I assure you, all of those have fantastic open worlds, but we're not going to be talking about those today. We're going to be talking about the modern open world games, and here's just a list of, in my opinion, the 10 best ones, 10 of my favorites, and a lot of these, I believe, are some of the best video games you could play nowadays. As always, this is just my opinion. I have not played every single game ever made. It feels like it at times, but I have not played every game, and so let me know down below if you think I'm missing a game, or you would have included a game I don't have on here, or if you want to see me do a list or talk about a series. You always let me know down below. I'm lurking in the comments. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. We got the Patreon and the super thanks. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. Seriously, thank you so much for all the support. I really do appreciate it. So enough dilly-dallying, let's get right into it. 10 best modern open world games. What do I think is number 10? And so here we have Forza Horizon 5. Now, when it comes to the Horizon games, all of these games are open world, and they all do have pretty decent to good open worlds, but in my opinion, the best one is Horizon 5. Honestly, Horizon 5 really has become one of my favorite driving games just of all time. I know it's not simulation based and it's a lot more on the arcade side, but I still very much enjoy what this game does, and one of the reasons I enjoy this game so much is the open world. The open world is very vast with a lot of different biomes, different environments, and events to keep things interesting. Obviously, you have a fantastic selection of cars. The presentation is amazing. This open world looks fantastic. The cars look amazing. The game is super smooth and runs really great. And a majority of the time, it's just a joy to play. The driving feels really nice. Like, I love how the drifting feels, how fast you get to go. There's a really great sense of speed. And then the amount of different objectives you get is really welcome. There is so much variety here. It's not just generic race after generic race. I mean, there's plenty of races, but there's so many other different missions and types of missions. It's really awesome to see, and the game really just tries to throw you into as many fun situations as possible. And on top of that, the game constantly is rewarding you with tons of new vehicles, upgrades, new parts, etc. It really feels like almost every, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes, they're giving you either a roulette wheel or you're unlocking something. It's really cool. The game also has a pretty fantastic multiplayer. There's a ton to do here, and the open world gets even bigger if you throw the DLCs in. I actually haven't tried the DLCs yet, but hopefully one day I get to. And really, Forza Horizon 5, in my opinion, it's one of the best modern driving games you could play, and it's this open world, man. It really is a standout. I love how many different varied biomes there are. It feels like there's so much to this open world. You're in the jungle one moment, then you're in the desert, then you're climbing a mountain. It's really great stuff, and Forza Horizon 3 also has a really standout open world that kind of reminds me of this, but Horizon 5, it's my favorite of the open world Forza games. And so here we have Batman Arkham Knight. Now, I love the Batman Arkham series. Arkham City is one of my favorite video games of all time and is a better game than this in my opinion, but I wouldn't exactly say Arkham City's modern anymore. The game is 13 years old, which I can't believe. Like, I remember getting that game when it came out, but we still have Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight came out in 2015, and you wouldn't know it by looking at the presentation. This is one of the best looking games to come out on the PS4 and Xbox One, and I swear Rocksteady really was working some black magic or something when they made this. Like, it just looks phenomenal. But enough about the presentation, let's actually talk about the game. The game is the third mainline game in the Arkham series, because for whatever reason WB doesn't consider Origins a mainline game, question mark, but yeah, it really is the conclusion to Batman's story, and it sees him going up against a really evil, sinister Scarecrow. I really love the story to this game. I think it's great. It's one of the best Batman stories. It's very dark, it's edgy, it is actually rated M, and it's incredibly memorable. And then the open world is also quite memorable. It actually does take place in Gotham City, not like a sectioned off part like Arkham City. No, it's in Gotham City. Unfortunately, the city's pretty much been cleared out, so there's not like a bunch of civilians or anything like that, but it's still a pretty detailed decent open world that you will actually get to explore as well, whether you're on foot, where it's very much like the other Arkham games, or you're in the Batmobile where you get to drive super fast and have everyone's favorite, the tank gameplay. The combat is very much Batman Arkham combat. It might be the best of the whole series. You have a bunch of other tools at your disposal, and it feels really nice. The stealth is just as good as it's been in the other games, and then the Batmobile, you know, I like driving around in it. Driving around in it is fun. It feels nice. The combat, though, yeah, I've never been huge on it. I don't hate it like some people. I think it does have its fun moments, but I think it does get old, especially by the end of it. And I really didn't like that some of the bosses were put in vehicles just so you could fight them in the tank. For instance, Deathstroke, I thought that was really disappointing. A majority of the bosses are good, but the ones in the Batmobile, yeah, I'm good off of. I think the pacing is actually really well done in this game. It's constantly keeping things interesting, and you're never in one area too long. There's also a bunch of great side objectives. Obviously, Riddler comes back, but there's several other villains that show up here, and yeah, the side missions, they're quite good here, and you'll want to explore this open world. Probably goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. If you like the other Arkham games, you're gonna like Arkham Knight. If you haven't tried it by now, I really think it's worth trying, and I think it's one of the best superhero games of them all. This and Marvel Spider-Man 2, but I really didn't want to have two superhero games on the list, and I decided to be a little different and go with Arkham Knight. But both really are excellent. And so here we have Fallout 4. Now, I know that Fallout 4 is not everyone's cup of tea, and I'll just say it's not everyone's favorite Fallout, but I fall into the camp of people who very much enjoy Fallout 4. And one of the reasons I enjoy Fallout 4 as much as I do really is the open world. This game absolutely has what you're looking for in a Bethesda game, where you just kind of go off into a direction, find random towns, NPCs, quests, treasure, events, etc. You just kind of explore. The whole world is your oyster, and usually you'll be rewarded with, at the very least, some exposition about the world. And in my opinion, it really is that sense of exploration that really carries Fallout 4 into the next level and makes it one of my favorite open world games of all time. Sure, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas have fantastic open worlds, quests, stories, etc., but I wouldn't exactly say those games are modern. And now at this point, I feel like I should just talk about my favorite open world games, period, but a list for another day. Today we're talking about modern games, and yeah, back to Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is a very interesting story about you trying to go find your missing son, and I think the initial premise and the intro are pretty well done. It's very intriguing and interesting. Is it able to maintain that momentum? No, I don't think so, but again, the premise is quite good. On top of this, I think the characters are actually pretty great. I think a lot of the quests are good for the most part. They aren't, the very best of Bethesda quests, but I actually did enjoy a majority of them, mostly because of the characters. I think the companions are some of the best companions of the franchise, and the companions, along with the quests, were just very memorable. Like, that's one thing about Fallout 4 that I will give it. It was incredibly memorable, especially that DLC. The DLCs are actually quite good for this game. On top of this, I think the combat is decent enough. It's not great, but it's fine. It's serviceable. The RPG elements could be better, but I think it's fine outside of the dialogue, which I've just never really liked the dialogue system in this. The dialogue system is definitely better in Starfield, but that's like the only thing Starfield has above Fallout 4 in my opinion. Starfield could just never match Fallout 4's sense of exploration. It's the open world that makes Fallout 4 as good as it is. And sure, the game's not perfect. It's got plenty of flaws, from a shoddy presentation, plenty of bugs, the again somewhat lacking RPG elements, but I still really like what this game was doing, and I have some really great memories attached to this game that are never going to go anywhere. And maybe that's just blinding nostalgia, but I still genuinely think Fallout 4 is a good open world and is very much worth playing. Okay, and so here we got Ghost of Tsushima. Now, over the last few years, there have been some really big AAA Sony open world games like Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and Ghost of Tsushima, and I really think Ghost of Tsushima is the best of the open world games. This is just an excellent open world from the very first moment I stepped into this world to when I left. Like, I was very much into what this game was doing. It has an excellent story. It looks amazing. Seriously, the game just looks phenomenal. We could be here all day just oohing and awing at the graphics, because the graphics really are that great. But besides that, the game has a stellar open world with a ton of different biomes and things to do. There's a good amount of variety here. The story's very interesting about the Mongolian invasion of Japan, and it has you playing as Jin Sakai, a samurai who has to do some less than honorable things to stop these just monsters from taking over the country he loves the most. And I think the story's very good. I like where it goes. I like how Jin really struggles with it. There's some strong characters here, and I very much wanted to see what was going to happen. And then when it comes to the gameplay, it's basically the same story. You're dropped into this massive open world and are pretty much told to go do a few things, but you can just explore to your heart's content. There's plenty of collectibles, side objectives, main objectives. people to fight, things to see. The combat is pretty good in this game. I'm not going to say it's the best sword combat ever, but I really did enjoy it. I think it's fast, fluid, and somewhat rewarding. You can be stealthy as well, and the stealth is decent in this game. It's not, amazing also, but it works. It all comes together in a really nice package is really what I'm trying to say. The traversal mechanics are nice. The open world is actually decently dense. You get plenty of different missions here. And there's actually quality to almost all the side missions. There's really not any super generic cookie cutter ones here. It feels like they actually did put effort into really everything. I'm not going to say the side quests are as good as the main objectives, but they're good. And there's some decent set pieces here. There's some decent set pieces in the main game as well. And some that are even better than decent. On top of this, there is the expansion Iki Island that has been added. There's even some multiplayer here. Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, it's not only one of the best PS4 and 5 games, it's coming to PC. It's one of the best games you could just play right now, period. It was great when it came out, and I still think it's excellent now, and I believe it very much is worth your time, and this open world really is worth exploring. And so here we have Red Dead Redemption 2. This game doesn't exactly need much of an introduction. Developed by Rockstar Games, really the masters of the open world. Red Dead 2, it's one of the best open world games just of all time, and is likely the best Western cowboy game just ever made. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than Red Dead Redemption 2. If you're looking for one of the most detailed open worlds just of all time, you're gonna find it right here. It's very dense despite how vast the open world is. There's a lot of details here. There's a lot of NPCs to interact with. And people are still finding things even nowadays. When it comes to the story, it is one of the best when it comes to Rockstar, where it's about Arthur Morgan running with the Vanderlyn gang, and Arthur Morgan is one of the greatest characters in any video game. He's very likable, he has a lot of depth, they give him a lot of time to grow, he does grow. And it's not just him, there's a bunch of excellent characters in the Vanderlyn gang you really come to enjoy and love. Several of these characters you really come to hate the Pinkertons. Like, you'll feel a lot of emotions with this story. It's just really well done. And then when it comes to the core gameplay, yeah, it isn't exactly the most different from any of Rockstar's other open world games. Usually you're given a mission, you gotta go somewhere, do something, kill some people, blow something up, steal something, and then escape. They didn't exactly reinvent the wheel when it comes to the structure of this open world or its missions, but what they did instead was went for quality open missions where there's tons of awesome set pieces, you do a bunch of memorable things, and it's a really long, action-packed time. Seriously, you'll spend easy 40-50 hours with this game. It is Rockstar's longest game by a landslide. It makes the old GTA game seem small in comparison, and you'll go through this really epic cinematic tale. The game has very slow pacing. It starts you off very slow. You don't even get to see the open world for the first several hours, and I actually do like this. I like how it builds everything up, and I think the payoffs are really worth it. The shooting is very good in this game. The Deadeye feels great. It's incredibly satisfying. The horse riding is pretty decent. It is quite realistic, and I know a lot of people don't like how much horse riding you do, but I mean, I thought it was fine for what it is. You can really customize your horse, which is pretty great. And then there's a bunch of other mini games that show up like blackjack, and all of these outside of the RC car are pretty good. There's even a little bit of replayability. You know, you get to make some choices that will affect the mission or the story a little bit, but despite that, I wouldn't say the game is like crazy replayable, but it still is a cool addition nonetheless. Look, people have talked about Red Dead Redemption 2 to death. It is very much worth playing if you like Westerns, Rockstar games, or open world games in general. It's one of the very best. The open world is almost second to none, and it makes me really excited to see what GTA 6 is going to do, because if Red Dead 2 was as good as it is, who knows how crazy 6 is going to be. And so here we have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Breath of the Wild really was a breath of fresh air, pun intended, where you were dropped into this just gargantuan open world and told, go do whatever the hell you want. You can do the main story, you can go do the objectives, you don't even got to do any of it. You can just go fight Ganon if you want. And Tears of the Kingdom expands on that. It's got an even bigger open world, but it also still maintains that freedom, and in my opinion is a better game than Breath of the Wild. I really couldn't go back to Breath of the Wild at this point. Like, I think Tears of the Kingdom really is that much better. I think the open world is just as expansive, but it's more detailed. There's more things to do in it, and it felt more lively. I really like the inclusion of the depths and the sky area. I mean, it adds even more to this open world. There's hundreds of shrines to do. There's a bunch of big dungeons. The story's better. This game really just feels like a huge improvement over Breath of the Wild, and it's become one of my favorite open world games of all time, and maybe even my favorite Zelda game of all time. It's certainly up there. Like, this game is just really great. If you have a Switch, haven't tried this game, I really don't know what you're waiting for. Again, the story, it's so good, it's interesting, the storytelling itself is very interesting. There's one moment, I won't spoil it, I'll just say it's one of the most epic moments I've legit ever had in a video game. Like, unironically, it was really freaking cool. And then all of the survival kind of elements are brought over from Breath of the Wild, you know, where your clothes matter, your weapons can break, you gotta watch out for the environment, and it all adds to the gameplay. It keeps things interesting, keeps things varied, you're always on your toes, and it means you're gonna get some pretty good rewards if you do some of the side quests. And I think the side quests are actually very interesting in this game. In Breath of the Wild, they were just kind of whatever in my opinion, but here, they're much better. In fact, the main missions are better as well, the dungeons are better, the shrines are better, the abilities you get are better. Like, straight up, in my opinion, basically everything is better with this game over Breath of the Wild. Presentation's better, the music's better. Presentation, I know some people don't like that it runs at like 30 and it doesn't look hyper realistic or amazing, but that stuff doesn't really matter all that much to me. It's smooth enough, it didn't hamper my experience. The gameplay, the game world, the exploration, it really just is almost as good as it gets. Like, I wasn't totally sure how they were going to improve on Breath of the Wild, but after playing this, oh, it is so good, man. I've put well over 100 hours into this game, and you could put easy like 200 hours and still not even beat it. Like, there's just a lot to this game. You'll be playing this game a very long time, and what's great is you can come back and play in a completely different order, play a totally different way, and I think people are going to be playing this game and talking about this game for many, many more years to come, and I really have no idea where the Zelda franchise, the main Zelda franchise, goes from here, because I don't know how you make it better than Tears of the Kingdom. I really don't. One of the best open world games, period. Alright, I'm sure some people are going to disagree with the placement, but we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The newest game on this list, Final Fantasy Rebirth, is quickly becoming one of my favorite open world games of all time, and is easily the best open world Final Fantasy game. Now, the previous game, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, was very linear. You rarely ever went off the beaten path, so I was very curious to see how they would tackle an open world in Rebirth, and oh, it is so good. This is how every Final Fantasy open world should be. The game doesn't just have like one big open world, it actually has several different open worlds, and all of them are decent in size, but one thing they all share in common is that there's a lot to do here. Sure, some of it is a little generic, go take out the big enemy, do a hunt, climb a tower, go talk to this person, but there's plenty of original things here. There's a ton of mini games to do, and all of the environments are very different. Each open world really has different gameplay from the last. Sure, you're riding a chocobo the entire time, but each open world, it's different, trust me. Of course, there are parts of this game that are very linear. There's a few really story-heavy segments where you're not in an open world for hours at a time, and this is good too because then it refreshes you, gets you ready for that next open world, and I really just never got sick of the open world gameplay. I wanted to do everything in this game. I wanted to do absolutely every single thing that I could, and it's pretty rare where I want to do that in an open world game, but they very much made it all rewarding, they made it all satisfying, interesting, and above all else, fun. The game has a good sense of exploration. It really does actually give you good shit to go explore these open worlds. The combat is very well done. It's some of the best action RPG combat, period. And I love that as you get more and more party members, you have a lot more different options, and it's not as rigid as it was in like the remake since there was only a few characters there. The combat is very well done. The story, not going to spoil anything here, just going to say it's very good. And this is really one of the best casts of characters in any video game. The presentation's excellent, the music goes so hard, like unbelievably hard. The music is stupid good in this game, and it's no wonder why so many people say this might be the best Final Fantasy game of them all. It's just really well done. And if you haven't played it, I really recommend that you do. It's only on PS5, but I'm certain it will come to PC in the future, so check it out. And so here we have Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Now the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series has always had some pretty great open worlds. They weren't the biggest by any means. In fact, these are some of the smallest open worlds, but they were some of the most dense, detailed open worlds you'd find in any video game, where you can go in nearly every store and interact with seemingly everything. And while Infinite Wealth doesn't have that detailed of an open world, I think it still is one of the best open worlds of the entire series. It has the biggest open world that the series has ever seen with Hawaii, but you do actually go to more than just Hawaii, and it's pretty cool how dense the open worlds still are. When it comes to this game's story, it very much takes place after Yakuza Like a Dragon and stars our man Ichiban. going to Hawaii for reasons, but the story is very much bigger than Ichiban, as Kiryu shows up here as well. And I'll just say it's one of the best stories, one of the best plots of any Yakuza game. I don't think it's the very best. I think the best is probably Yakuza Like a Dragon, but this is in the top 5 easy. It is still very good. It's very interesting. It's got plenty of great plot twists, and the story very much makes this game worth playing. I will put it out there though, the game is a very slow pace to it. It is a very slow start. You don't even get to the real open world till like 4 or 5 hours in, but it's so worth it. It's so rewarding. It all pays off, and I'm fine with the slower pace, especially if it means for a more rewarding story, and I think the payouts are very good here. When it comes to the gameplay, it's just a straight up improvement on Like a Dragon. Like, it's not even close. The combat is just way better. The jobs are better. I like how you can really interact with the environment, your teammates. You can just move around the battlefield. Like, it's some of the best turn-based combat ever. And then, as with really every other Yakuza game, there's a bunch of crazy mini games you get to do, and most of these are pretty good. They're actually well developed. They're fun. The side games are great. Dondoko Island and the Sujimon battles are really great. Actually, I did all of these. You're looking at a ton of content with this game. Like, this game has more to it than any other Yakuza game. I put over 90 hours into this game, and I nearly completed everything there was to do because I was just so into it. It legit has become one of my favorite games of all time. It has a great presentation, superb soundtrack, and that open world, man, that open world is killer. I did not get sick of it. I love just exploring everything and interacting with as many people as I could. And it all is incredibly rewarding. The game constantly rewards you, and it does a great job at making everything feel fulfilling. And that open world really helps bring everything together. One of the best games that I've played in recent memory. Like, I really love this game. I love this entire franchise to death, but this game, it really just hit different, and I had no doubts that it was going to be in like the top 3 when it came to a list like this. 1000% worth playing, but I will say you really should play the previous game before jumping into this one. Like, really play it. Okay, and so here's a game that absolutely does not need an introduction, and that's Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. One of the very best open world games, one of the best games ever made. When it came out, people went ballistic. It won seemingly every game of the year, and if you've played through it yourself, you could probably understand why. I know not every single human being on the planet likes this game, but I think a majority of people can really love and appreciate what The Witcher 3 does. The Witcher 3 really is just one of those 10 out of 10 must-play experiences that I can very much recommend to anybody, and the open world, it is no exception. It is one of the best open worlds when it comes to any video game. You know, looking back, it kind of feels like The Witcher 3 was a bit of a turning point for open world games. Obviously, we had open world games for like 15 years prior, but it feels like they've been different since The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 really gave this excellent sense of exploration, and it also had meaningful side objectives. So many games, Ubisoft games, had just very cookie cutter, generic checklist side objectives. The Witcher 3 said, we're going to be different. We're going to make the side content like just as good as the main content. You're going to want to do everything, and I did like everything. It's all very rewarding, it's very fulfilling, it's memorable. There's a ton of amazing side quests. Some of the side quests legit are better than the main game. The open world is dense, there's a lot to it. There's several open worlds actually, and they're all very different from each other. I love how this game just kind of goes through stages or acts, and it makes playing through it just such a breeze, whether you're in the early stages or you get to Novigrad and you're in this deep dense city just talking to people, or you're in Skellige where you're on the boat moving slowly, exploring, looking for treasure. It feels like you're doing something really different every couple hours. It keeps things varied and interesting, and it's thanks to the open world that all of this is possible. That and, you know, the characters, writing, story, combat, gameplay, okay, basically everything. The story's very good, it's really interesting. Geralt's incredibly likable. He's looking for Ciri. You even get to play as Ciri a little bit, and playing as her is alright. It's very linear when you do, and it's decent enough. The combat, well, not everyone's cup of tea. I very much enjoy it. I love the hunts. I like the side objectives. I like how you get to explore around. I like the quests you get. The presentation is just all around fantastic, and if you have not played The Witcher 3 at this point, I really don't know what you're waiting for. It's on every platform. It's very playable. It's cheap. And you really don't need to play the first 2 games. It helps, sure, but it's not really necessary at all. I don't think a majority of people have played Witcher 1 and 2 who have played 3. I've played 1 and 2, and it really didn't mean a ton for 3. Oh, and the DLC is fantastic. I really think this is CD Projekt Red's best game. You know, I thought about including Cyberpunk on here, but Witcher 3 is just way better in my opinion. Cyberpunk's cool, but Witcher 3, ooh. This game, it is still almost 10 years later just as good as it was all those years ago. Like, the game is fantastic. And then it really shouldn't come as a surprise, we have Elden Ring. Elden Ring is not only the best modern open world game, but maybe the greatest open world game, period. It's one of the very best games ever made, and it's about as legendary of an experience as it gets. You are just dropped into this ginormous, like genuinely humongous open world and are told, yeah, just kind of go do whatever you want. Like, there are some things you're supposed to do, but you can do seemingly whatever the hell you want. There's a bunch of different directions you can go, and as you play more, the game opens up even more and more. And the same goes for the combat. You can't do a ton when you start the game, but as you play more, you unlock new abilities, you get more weapons, etc. It is very much Souls-like combat, you know, that slow, methodical, heavy, quite challenging combat. And yeah, Elden Ring, it's a tough game. Sometimes it'll really kick your ass. I don't think it's as hard as some of the other Souls games, but if you haven't played a game like this before, I'm sure it will catch you off guard, but trust me, absolutely stick with it because it just doesn't get much better than this. Like, the exploration is phenomenal. You are constantly rewarded with good shit, whether it's loot or more exposition. There's a ton to see here. All of the areas are interesting and different. The level design is phenomenal. It feels like every single inch of this game has been handcrafted. Some open worlds, it really feels like they're phoning it in. Here, nuh-uh. All of it feels very handcrafted. The level design is some of the best you'll find in any open world game, and you genuinely will want to explore every single square inch. You'll want to find all the nook and crannies, you'll want to find all the bosses, you'll find every dungeon, and it's totally all worth it. I put like 100 hours into this game, and I feel like I'm still missing quite a bit. There are so many bosses to fight. Most games have like a dozen boss fights. Elden Ring is like 50, 60 plus. They're all really well designed. Some of them are really freaking hard, but the bosses are great, the combat's excellent, the RPG mechanics are great, the amount of different things you can summon is cool. It's easily one of the most rewarding video games I've ever played, and the game really wants you to succeed. You can feel that. It wants you to go off the beaten path and to explore everything. And I mean, I certainly did, but if you aren't, I think you're really going to be missing out. Look, everybody's hyped up Elden Ring for a while now. I've been hyping it up myself. I've talked about it several times on the channel. Presentation's fantastic, gameplay is phenomenal, open world's amazing, combat, RPG mechanics, it's all superb. Video games just seemingly don't get much better than Elden Ring. And when I was making this list, it wasn't even close. I knew Elden Ring was going to be number one. I love all of these games. I think all the games I talked about are truly fantastic and they're all worth playing. But seriously, if you haven't played Elden Ring, I really think you should go check it out, especially with the DLC coming out. Ooh, it's going to be so good. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you made it to today's video, I need you to comment cement, as in what's in the ground, and buildings. That'll tell me you made it to the end of the video. You'll get a nice heart from me. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Stay safe, y'all. Bye-bye now.